his greatest achievement was breaking down what seemed like an impossible goal into manageable objectives. And I've already alluded to the fact that he's an element of a professor, Clive. Looks under every stone. Sent Dave Allred down to Australian rules football, our kicking coach, to learn how to catch, to teach how to catch. Yeah, everyone knows how to catch. We'd always call it like this. This is how I catch. Goes down to Australian rules, they catch like that. What's the difference? About a yard. Who became the greatest teams at cross-kicking on the planet? Why did Benny Cohen score 31 tries for England? What does every single team now do on a Saturday afternoon? Everyone does a cross-kick. How do they all catch? Like that. No one ever caught like that in rugby until Clive sent Dave Allred. So he surrounded himself with guys and delegated responsibility in terms of the coaching. But then again, it was still to win a World Cup. How do you do that? And the professor in him broke the game down into 7 areas. 7 simple areas, and we call them world-class performance behaviours. So he identified, like an accountant, 7 areas where you must hit targets in order to achieve success. Attack, defence, scrum, line-outs, restart, counter-attack, and the mindset game. 7 high-performance behaviours. And he convinced us. Whether or not it was right or wrong, he convinced us that if we hit 90% in each of those areas, no matter what South African mutant came out of the change room, we would win the game. So suddenly we thought, individually in our own little groups, we can do this. We then created leadership groups. Everyone says Johnson had so many captains underneath him. They weren't natural captains. They were captains created within that England environment because Phil Vickery or Jason Leonard was in charge of scrums. Ben Kay lineouts, Neil back defence, I was in charge of attack, Jason Robertson in charge of counter-attack, Benny Cohen restarts, and Johnny the mindset game. We shifted it around, allowed other people. We decided how long training was. We were accountable, we were responsible to make sure our own particular areas were in good shape. Totally leadership-centred culture, no micromanagement. We were allowed to operate locally, we were allowed to make decisions. It's not about having the best players. I can stare down a lens. I mean, I played in the centre with Mike Tyndall. I still have no idea how he's 15th in line to the throne. He's literally one small plane crash away from being king. From Wakefield. It just staggers me. And if you, oh my God, the news of the world is just waiting to be written. But anyway, that's good old times, in the old days. Stare down a lens in 1998, 1999. There's no way I'd have said I was the best player in the world. There's no way Mike Tyndall would have said he was the best player in the world. 2003, 2002, 2001. Getting to stand next to me, stare down the lens and say, we are the best centre combination in the world. Absolutely. With total and utter belief in what we're saying. Separate us as individuals. Nervy, do you feel right? Put us together as a unit. Substitute my cat in there with me, or Catty in there with Tins, or even Stuart Abbott in there with Tins. We'd all stare down the lens and go, we're the best unit. That transformation had to take place, and for that we had to have a collective standard of behaviour. As I said, you think there's strange rules, but it meant we all knew how to behave on England duty. We were in the right kit. And the Lombardi time was my favourite. I still live my life by Lombardi time. Greatest American football coach of all time. The meeting started at 10. Absolutely everyone in our organisation was ready, strapped up, ready to train at 9:45. Cara always said, why didn't you start at 9:45? Because we'd have been there at 9:30. So you set a time, and 5 years, I can tell you now, 5 years, considering some of the reprobates we had in that side, not one person late for one meeting. And you think, how's that possible when you had guys going for the same jersey and you're quite happy to send out misinformation? Because he flipped what you'd assume was the correct way to do it on its head and created a buddy system, which sounds like you were best pals. It didn't mean we were best pals to win the World Cup. It meant we'd come together. And the buddy system, and he did actually happen to be one of my great friends, is where you were put with the guy going for your jersey. Now historically that would mean you'd tell him the wrong time. You'd tell him the wrong kit. You'd tell him you were training in Birmingham, not Ascot. You'd do anything to make sure he wasn't there, he'd be excluded. The buddy system meant you were jointly held responsible for being in the right place at the right time in the right kit. So for 5 years, Mike Cat and I were joined together like an umbilical cord. And when Clive pulled back the flip chart in 2003 on November the 19th, and I had the jersey, and Clive left the room, there's 30 of us in the room, and there was that pregnant pause. No one knew what to do or move. 15 blokes wanting to go up and down. 15 blokes thinking, 5 bloody years, I'm not in this side. First 15 people on their feet that night were the 15 not in the team. First bloke to shake my hand, Catty. You know my number, Shaggy, you know my room number, anything you need, the next 96 hours to get you in the right physical, mental mindset for this game, you call on me anytime. That to me is often the best endorsement of how far we've moved as a team. So when you go on a Lions tour, you have to understand the badge, the heritage, the emotion. Willie John McBride, Gareth Edwards. And on a national tour, you'll lock yourself away, by and large, on a training field, in a hotel. You'll be secretive. On a Lions tour, fling open the doors. There's nothing to hide. They welcome you. When you go as England to New Zealand, they despise you. When you go to New Zealand as a Lion, they love you. So you have to reciprocate that feeling and head out into the communities and do the coaching days. We went in from Christchurch one day. It was a 90-minute bus trip. And I was on the back of the bus with Gareth Thomas and Stephen Jones. And it was incredible. From the moment the key turned on to the moment the key turned off, they had a 90-minute argument about whether Batman could or could not fly. Fascinating, intense debate. In the end, they decided he's a man with special powers, but he could only glide. I thought it was a fair reflection on the qualities of Batman. And there's a variety of other different characters. And I say this to then put into context the challenges that Clive had to cope with the very average levels of intelligence that by and large we surrounded ourselves with on a rugby field. When one great Irishman came down for breakfast in New Zealand in 2005 and said there are 19 million sheep in this country and I can't get a bacon sandwich. Since 2008 I've been involved in a programme called School of Hard Knocks, where I disappear off the radar for about 11, 12 weeks. Normally January, February, March, you'll see me on the TV for the Six Nations or the big games. During the week I just sort of slide off and I film a programme with Sky that started in Liverpool in 2008, where myself and Scott Quinnell go to job centres on, let's pick a nominal date, January the 13th, January the 14th. We go to job centres in and around cities of a relatively, or inner city areas with relatively high unemployment. And we stand there in a street with a camera. I admit it is reality TV and we are making a show for Sky. But we're unbelievably passionate about what we do. We ask blokes between the ages of 18 and 40, do you want a job? And by and large we sort of get our hand bitten off. Yeah, I'd love a bloody job, being unemployed for 2 or 3 years or whatever it might be. I've got a criminal record, I can't get a job. And we say, right, okay, we'll help you, but there's a little buy-in here, there's a lock-in. There's a deal to be struck here. We will help you do CVs, do job interviews, learn how to handshake, learn how to make eye contact, learn how to converse in an office environment and give yourself a better opportunity to find employment. The flip side of it is you've got to play rugby for us. And we're going to teach you how to play rugby. And in 10 weeks we're going to turn you from a rabble on a rugby field into a side that can take the field as a team with an element of trust between blokes who never met each other before, who would normally cross the street to avoid each other, and through that journey have an unbelievable time.